These drug classification laws are literally anti-therapeutic, anti-healing. You just start to think, if they're lying to us about this, if they're saying this doesn't have any accepted benefits and is dangerous and has a high risk of dependency, what else are they lying to us about? Stressful. Hey y'all, it's Chrysanthus, and welcome to another one of our Reddit trips. Today, we're going to be talking about the benefits of magic mushrooms. I have spoken a lot about the benefits of magic mushrooms on this channel, but I also want y'all to look out for my videos on HPPD and the dark side of psychedelics. I want to do a solid job on this channel of spreading the good word about these medicines while at the same time expressing the risks. I don't want this channel to turn into any sort of psychedelic propaganda where there are benefits to these medicines, there are also risks. So please look out for those videos. All that being said, today we are not going to talk about the risks of magic mushrooms. We are going to talk about the benefits. If you're new to this channel, welcome. We are a realm dedicated to psychedelics and sacred plant medicines, all about demystifying and destigmatizing the trip. To me, a potent part of destigmatization is to just present the facts, present the science. And if you get something out of the facts and the science that I'm presenting in this video today, please consider subscribing to this channel. We're working our way to our first 5,000 subs, and every sub counts.
The following video is made for the purpose of education and harm reduction. We are not promoting the use, procurement, or possession of any plant medicine or substance. We encourage everyone to do further research and prioritize safety.
Hopping on to Reddit. All right, this first Redditor says, looking for convincing evidence for the medical benefits of magic mushrooms. I'm looking for some convincing sources that shrooms heal your mind. This isn't to convince me, but rather for me to present to some skeptics. Doing searches, a lot of sources are a bit dated. What strikes me about this post is that they're looking for evidence that shrooms heals your mind. And I think that, I've said this before, but I think that mushrooms are just a tool. I don't think mushrooms do all of the work or even a majority of the heavy lifting in terms of mind healing. In order to heal our minds, we must pair this tool with things like self-work, mindfulness practices, therapy, that sort of a thing. Magic mushrooms and all plant medicine / psychedelics will not inherently heal your mind, make you a better person, etc., just by virtue of sitting with them. If you need any evidence, look no further than all of the Nazis that did LSD. This is a solid comment that kind of reflects that. Someone said, I would not say they heal your mind, but rather they help you find the capacity to heal yourself. I think that's very well put. The next person linked a study from Johns Hopkins. I'm in Baltimore right now, so I know all about the Johns Hopkins studies. I know people who have been a part of the studies and have been participants. I am very much well aware of that, but let's open up this link. Psychedelic treatment with psilocybin relieves major depression, study shows. I will save this link to link it in my bio. I think it's important that folks are hip to this study. The article reads, in a small study of adults with major depression, Johns Hopkins medicine researchers report that 2 doses of the psychedelic substance psilocybin given with supportive psychotherapy produced rapid and large reductions in depressive symptoms, with most participants showing improvement and half of study participants achieving remission through the 4-week follow-up, which is huge. I mean, there's no prescription drug or medication that has reached this level of curing depression. I think something important to note here is that this piece right here, given with supportive psychotherapy. I think that part is very important to note, because if you are sitting with these substances just thinking that they're gonna do all the work, all of the heavy lifting for you, and you don't have to go to therapy, you don't have to seek out supportive psychotherapy, you're going to have a bit of a different experience. Also, something important to note, these studies were done in a hyper-controlled environment. So that looks like a small, dimly lit room with a lounging chair where someone's eyes are covered the entire time and they're played a specific playlist of music. I think that if you're met with skepticism in your life after, wanting to expound about the benefits of psychedelics on your mental health, I mean, folks are gonna try to, but they can't argue with the science. And I know for myself, presenting my family with scientific evidence and studies and all that kind of stuff has really changed their mind and a lot of their skepticism to my relationship with psychedelics. And some folks I'm really close with are now even curious about trying it for themselves for the first time, which is amazing. But you can't argue with this evidence. You can't argue with what folks are experiencing in these studies and even out of these studies. So this is another important piece of this article. Overall, 4 weeks post-treatment, 54% of participants were considered in remission, being they no longer qualified as being depressed. So when we're talking about depression here, y'all, this is something that a good majority of people in my life have to deal with. Depression, anxiety as well. For the entire group of 24 participants, 67% showed more than 50% reduction in depression. For the entire group of 24 participants, 67% showed a more than 50% reduction in depression symptoms at the 1 week follow-up, and 71% at the 4 week follow-up. This is not just huge, it's unprecedented. So I highly recommend, if you are on TripTube, which it seems like you're on TripTube right now because you're watching this video, to not just stay on TripTube, but to get off of TripTube and read some of the studies. They're really incredible. This Redditor also cites a study from the UK. I'm less familiar with this one, honestly. And then if we scroll down a bit, we'll see this Redditor writes, I highly recommend Pollan's book 2. I've talked about that on this channel before. That's How to Change Your Mind. Also check out this great podcast, Hell and High Water, with John Heilman. I haven't heard about this podcast, but I'll have to give it a look. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. The episode you want is with Rick Doblin. Okay, yes, we know Rick Doblin. He's the executive director of MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. He has been working on getting psychedelics back into wide therapeutic study and use for decades. MDMA is likely to get federal approval first for reasons he explains, but mushrooms are a few years behind that. Really good stuff to explain how the war on drugs deep-sixed the promising therapeutic use of psychedelics for healing your mind. So, I remember the first time I ever heard about MAPS. I was on a bus called the Burner Express on my way to Burning Man, and I was sat down next to a woman who was definitely an elder in community and had a bunch of cornbread that she brought for people to eat, and she just seemed really sweet. And I had never experienced Burning Man before, right? So I didn't know about other burners. I was so shy. I was listening to my music, but I challenged myself to take my music out of my ears and talk to her. And she ended up being a psychedelic shaman and told me all about MAPS and was like, yeah, honey, if you have some extra pocket change hanging around or somewhere, like, we really all should be giving to MAPS. And she told me about how they're supporting research and they're supporting the legalization of substances that really have no reason to be classified as they are right now. I get a bit into drug classifications in some of my other videos, but a lot of these drugs are Schedule I substances, right? Which means there is no acceptable medical use for them. And here all of these studies are telling us that, yes, there are accepted medical uses in the eyes of science and using the scientific method. So I will check out the Hell and High Water podcast with Rick Doblin, and I also suggest everybody at home to check out MAPS and some of the work that they're doing. They also kill it in the realm of harm reduction, especially at festivals, and I think of projects like the Zendo Project. Love MAPS. MAPS is doing some of the important work. All right, next we're gonna take it to r/shrooms. This is someone posting about the benefits of magic mushrooms, and this just seems to be maybe their personal experience with it, so a little bit of a testimonial. When I was tripping, I always was fascinated how everything makes sense and how my brain was accepting of my thought. Usually I would get irritated by the smallest thing and my mood drastically changes for the rest of the day. But after using magic mushrooms, I feel as if my thought process has changed. I think differently. I'm more accepting if something doesn't go my way or I'm faced by a problem. It's like I got wiser, which is very weird because I generally was not how I was after them. They have helped me so much. Still can't believe they are a Schedule 1 drug? ? The world does not make sense. Yes, that is a huge takeaway I had, especially after my first trip, that everyone is out drinking alcohol right now, which is legal, but this mushroom that I am partaking in is a Schedule 1 substance and could land me behind bars for years. Makes no sense. And that is kind of like the beginning of, not that I ever really had any faith in the law or believed in the law. I think when I was younger, when I was in college, I wanted to believe that there was some rhyme or reason for laws, but these drug classification laws are literally anti-therapeutic, anti-healing, anti-inner peace and well-being. And you just start to think, if they're lying to us about this, if they're saying this doesn't have any accepted benefits and is dangerous and has a high risk of dependency and all this kind of stuff, you know, what else are they lying to us about? Stressful. This is another one about the University of British Columbia study about the benefits of magic mushrooms. Psychedelic drugs showing renewed promise as a mental health therapy. Renewed medical interest in the use of psychedelic drugs for anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and addiction has resulted in small research studies that show some success with the controlled use of these drugs, according to an analysis published in the Canadian Medical Association Journal. So this goes into a bit about LSD-assisted psychotherapy and how it might reduce anxiety from terminal illness. I know a lot of these studies were done with terminally ill cancer patients, and a small US study of the drug MDMA shows a reduction in symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder in people with that condition. PTSD is something that affects a large amount of our population. I think significantly larger than we would like to think in general, but especially it disproportionately affects folks like veterans. So if we had a medicine that could help folks deal with their post-traumatic stress disorder and reduce the symptoms in post-traumatic stress disorder, it goes without saying that we would literally be working with a medicine that could save lives and that would actively be saving lives. Another small study in which the active molecule in magic mushrooms was used as a part of therapy for alcohol addiction shows a significant reduction in the number of days alcohol was used, as well as in the amount, right? So going back to magic mushrooms, which is what this video is mostly about, we're seeing magic mushrooms being able to heal folks from alcoholism. I literally decided to become alcohol sober on a psychedelic journey. I think that these things aren't just coincidence. I think that the larger systems that be, they're very aware of this. I think that they're aware of the science and the research. I think that they know that the more folks who are out here journeying on mushrooms and sitting with psychedelics, the less folks who are going to be at bars. But it's not just the less folks at bars, it's also the less folks drunk behind the wheel, the less accidents caused by drunk driving, the less instances of domestic abuse fueled by alcohol. I think that there are further reaching implications here than just like, oh, this served as a solid therapy for alcohol addiction. I think that right now, the way alcohol addiction functions in this country, at least, and I live in the US, it's definitely a plague. The way that we're socialized to drink alcohol, something that is literally, is like, it feels poisonous to our bodies. For myself, I can say it wasn't the best for me. I think that socialization is a plague. I think that the systems and the powers that be know that we are dissatisfied with life, and if we drink alcohol, we can feel soothed in that dissatisfaction enough to go back to our jobs on Monday. But yeah, I get a lot of comments on this channel from people like sticking up and defending alcohol, and if that's your thing, I'm not bashing it. I'm just saying, for me, that's not where it's at. For me, I have moved past that part of my life of drinking alcohol, and to each their own. What I'm not saying is that, like, if you're watching this right now, you shouldn't drink. I think everybody should think critically about all substances that we ingest and how much that consumption has to do with our socializations. And I know for me, it just so happened that alcohol had everything to do with socialization and nothing to do with me actually getting anything out of that experience that was worthwhile enough for me to continue doing it. But that's just me. If you like alcohol, do your thing. I'm not telling folks to stop going to bars. Alcohol might be awesome to you. I'm just coming from a different place. I'm not trying to yuck your yum. You can have it. You can have alcohol is awesome. That was a tangent, but it's something that I've been meaning to say. So a lot of what we're seeing here is talking about the medical benefits of magic mushrooms as a breakthrough treatment, right? So it's just an exciting time that we're living in. I am going to check out one last Reddit post, and this person has just listed out some of the medical benefits of magic mushrooms. I will say for this one, I'm not seeing a link that works for the article that they're referring to, but I can speak to some of these benefits for myself. 1, it helps with addiction. 2, decreases depression and anxiety. That's true. I never had a battle with any specific addiction, so I can't speak to that personally, but I can speak to the fact that it does decrease depression and anxiety, so much so that, like, when I'm really depressed, I don't even want to sit with magic mushrooms, because I know that that will challenge me to look at my life in a way that takes me out of the cycle, and depression can really be treatment resistant in that way. Helps with migraines and cluster headaches, reduces OCD symptoms, enhances creativity. That's definitely true. A lot of the times while you're journeying, you might be able to, oh my gosh, I've been able to paint like a pro using magic mushrooms in a way that I cannot paint without them. And I've only painted like once or twice using magic mushrooms, but there was a significant difference in the skill, and it was like something else was guiding me. It was like I had 4 extra years of art school under my belt. It was wild. So yeah, for me, magic mushrooms have mostly been helpful in terms of my depression and anxiety. They've been helpful for me in terms of getting into a mindfulness practice. Magic mushrooms have also been very helpful for me in making big life decisions, which I will not recommend for other folks. But one example I can think of is my partner at the time was planning on going to Africa for over a month, and I was so sad about it. I was so in love with them. I was just like, I cannot believe that you're gonna be gone for that long. And they were telling me the entire time, like, you can come to Africa if you wanna come to Africa. And so I was just like, I can't believe you're gonna be gone. I'm gonna miss you so bad. And then they said it again, and they're like, you can come. And then it like clicked in my mind, like, oh, I can just come to Africa with them for a month. And I made up my mind right then and there during our journey that, all right, I'm gonna come to Africa. And that was the first time I ever got to go to Africa. We stayed on a homestead in Swaziland for 3 weeks. We visited South Africa a bit. It was a lovely experience, and one that I am grateful to magic mushrooms for, and also to my ex for the push. And I definitely would not have made that decision under just a sober state of mind, because it, like, the reality of the situation, the simplicity of the situation didn't click. So yeah, not telling everyone out there to make important life decisions with magic mushrooms. Just for me, every time that I have, it has worked out in my favor and to my benefit. And magic mushrooms really help me see past my personal tunnel vision, and I underestimate on a daily basis how much my decision making is clouded by tunnel vision and hyperfixations. And a lot of the times we tend to hyperfixate on the negative things to a degree that we don't start moving and shifting things around to be positive. So I truly see magic mushrooms as an excellent tool for doing just that. Yeah. Thank you for joining me today for another Reddit trip. I seriously appreciate y'all coming back to my channel time and time again and peeping these videos. Please subscribe to The Realm if you haven't yet. And if you would like to support this channel financially, I am getting a Patreon up and running. I'm not sure if that will be up and running by the time I have this video out, but we also have merch on our Threadless shop. You can get your own Keep It Trippy thing, and I design all of these myself. So thank you again so much for joining me. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Chrysanthus. And yeah, I'll catch you next time. Keep it trippy.